In the summer of 1184, the German city of Erfurt was bustling with activity. Narrow streets wound between timber-framed houses, and merchants sold their goods in the market square. But on one fateful day in late July, this thriving medieval centre became the stage for one of history's most shocking and strangely grotesque disasters. The tragedy would claim the lives of many high-born nobles, not in battle or through betrayal, but in a manner almost too grim and absurd to believe. At the heart of the story was Henry VI, George of Germany and future Holy Roman Emperor. In 1184, Henry was only in his early 20s, but he was already a shrewd and ambitious ruler. His reign was defined by power struggles among the empire's many dukes, counts and bishops. That summer he called for a meeting in Erfurt to settle a bitter feud between two prominent nobles, Louis III of Thuringia and Archbishop Conrad of Mainz. The quarrel between these two men threatened to boil over into open conflict, and Henry was determined to assert his authority. The meeting was to be held in the upper hall of the city's old Petersburg citadel, a large stone and timber structure perched on a hill. Beneath the hall was the building's garderobe, a communal latrine suspended over a cesspit where waste collected. Though the architecture was typical of the period, no one could have foreseen how central this feature would become to the day's events. On the morning of July 26th, nobles from across the empire gathered in the hall. The air was thick with tension as the most powerful men in the land crowded into the space. Armed retainers waited outside while their lords argued within. The floor groaned under the weight of so many armoured figures, but no one paid much attention. After all, the building had stood for decades without incident. As King Henry addressed the assembly, urging peace between Louis and Conrad, disaster struck. Without warning, the wooden floor beneath the nobles splintered and collapsed. The sheer mass of armoured men caused the structure to give way instantly, sending dozens plunging into the latrine pit below. The garderobe's rotting timbers shattered under the impact, and men tumbled into the cesspit's foul contents. What followed was chaos. Those on the edges of the collapse scrambled to safety, but many were not so lucky. The weight of armour dragged men under the sludge, and the stench was overwhelming. The pit was deep, and its sides were slick with years of waste. Escape was nearly impossible. Witnesses later described a horrific scene of shouting, choking and desperate struggles in the darkness below. Some died instantly from the fall, breaking bones or striking their heads on the stone foundations. Others drowned or suffocated in the filth. The survivors clung to debris until rescuers could haul them out, but for many, help came too late. By the time the scene was under control, it's believed that between 60 and 100 nobles had perished. An extraordinary loss of life, not in battle, but in one of the most humiliating and grisly accidents in medieval history. King Henry himself narrowly avoided death. Accounts differ, but most suggest he was seated at one end of the hall and managed to escape when the far side gave way. Shaken but unharmed, he immediately left Erfurt, leaving others to deal with the dead. The bodies of the nobles were retrieved and buried, though records are silent on the specifics, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the undignified circumstances. The Erfurt Latrine disaster quickly became infamous across Europe. Chroniclers of the time, while acknowledging the horror, often could not resist a tone of grim irony. Some framed it as divine judgment against greedy or quarrelsome nobles. Others saw it as a cautionary tale about the fragility of life and the perils of pride. In a world where death by plague, sword or starvation was commonplace, the idea that so many of the realm's elite could perish in a latrine pit was almost unthinkable. In the months that followed, the feud between Louis of Thuringia and Archbishop Conrad quieted, though whether out of genuine reconciliation or sheer embarrassment is unclear. What is certain is that the political landscape shifted. With so many nobles gone, power and lands were redistributed, changing the balance within the Holy Roman Empire. The disaster also highlighted the precariousness of medieval architecture. While castles and halls appeared imposing, they were often built with timber supports vulnerable to rot and strain. The Petersburg citadel itself would be rebuilt and strengthened, but the memory of that day could not be so easily erased. Today, the Erfurt Latrine Disaster remains one of the strangest tragedies in medieval history. It is a story both horrifying and darkly absurd, a reminder that in the medieval world, death could come not only from the sword or the gallows, but from the very floor beneath your feet. For the nobles of 1184, their quest for political dominance ended not with victory or glory, but in one of history's most ignominious fates. Thank you for watching and for joining me as we revisited one of history's darkest crimes. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss a journey into the shadows of the past. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, the past is never really gone.